And welcome to our Fields and Features segment. We're looking at sunspots, coronal holes, and more here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Let's get to it, starting out looking at Earth's geospace. So out to about 12 Earth's diameters, this is what's going on with the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. The scale you're looking at here is nanopascals, magnetohydrodynamic pressure. So we're going to let this run for the past 4 hours. This is what we're expecting to have been seeing according to the Space Weather Modeling Framework. If you want to read about what that is, go to the Geospace Magnetosphere movie page, click on Details, this tab right down here. Anyway, we've got a high-speed coronal hole wind stream currently striking the geospace, causing a little heightened pressure. We saw a brief period of geomagnetic storm last night. We'll get to it. First, ground magnetic perturbations. The scale here is nanotesla magnetic flux density. The perturbations on the ground, geospace delta B, changes to Earth's B field. The B field is the field that goes through the magnet, this magnet being the Earth. Next, we're going to look at magnetism in the solar system, as this isn't really all that exciting. There would have been some auroras noticed last night. Follow us on Twitter. We retweet auroral videos and photographs regularly. Here's the GOES magnetometer over the past 3 days. Some spiky readings in there, as there is a high-speed stream of plasma coming from a coronal hole right to your doorstep. When I say your doorstep, I mean several Earth diameters out in the magnetosphere. Next, the plasma in the solar system. We can expect to see a South Pole current sheet rushing this way. So we're going to see this, assuming all things remain the same, we're going to see this South Pole oriented current sheet. This one up here, we're going to see this accelerate toward Earth, as we're currently in a North Pole one. So assuming things remain roughly the same, that's what you can expect for a forecast. Keep in mind that data is over an hour and a half old, and the magnetic environment can suddenly change. Here's a line of sight view. You can see lots of magnetic organization on the earthly facing side of the sun. Here's our coronal hole plot. It shows you the sun's B field in blue. We've got quite a series of transequatorial North Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in there. You can see them in the upper left of that solar animation. And these show us the advancement of solar cycle 25. So here's a great visual in ultraviolet light, 193 angstroms from the SDO. And we can expect to see these get a little more defined, perhaps, in the coming days, because keep in mind, folks, the solar corona is very bumpy, and it's tough to see all the bumps in the solar corona from this perspective. It's very bright, and 193 angstroms is a good wavelength to view coronal holes. Let's move on to sunspots. And there were some flares. A C5.1, I believe it was, flare was produced by that new active region, which will be known as Sunspot 2953. It's the return of Sunspot 2936. It only appears to be alpha class at the moment. It's already produced some flares, though, so perhaps there are some trailing South Pole umbrae trailing that main huge North Pole umbra that leads new Sunspot 2954. It'll get named today. I doubt that'll evaporate quickly enough to not get named. So here's a full disk view of this 1700 angstroms. Sunspot 2948 looks like it's degraded a little bit since yesterday, over the past 24 hours. And we'll show some close-ups here. Here's the northern hemisphere. We're going to show an even closer close-up there of Sunspot 2954. It'll be its new name. First, the southern hemisphere. And 2948 has indeed degraded a little bit here over the past 24 hours. How about a close-up? And this sunspot up here is pretty decent too. It's got multiple umbrae there. It is a beta gamma class sunspot, it looks like. And you can see some flaring, even in this wavelength here from 2954. Here's that flare. The peak flux was around 4:10. That's 4:10 Universal Time this morning on February 20th. It was a C5.1 class flare. We still have a signal here in the proton flux. We've had it for days. Waiting for that one to subside, the proton flux. So a significant signal there, not a super high proton event, just barely registering there on the proton flux. Let's move to the real-time solar wind. Current conditions are about 7 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. Solar wind speed just under 500 kilometers per second at 494. The density did make it up to about 30 protons per cubic centimeter for a brief period. And this signal right up here, this is what caused the geomagnetic storm conditions. This mostly negative BZ signal here. And we did see a pretty strong field there. 12 and negative 7, 12 and negative 10. So that's your geomagnetic storm conditions right as the solar wind speed ramped up. So we're seeing that continued high-speed coronal hole wind stream. Let's continue on. KP index now only at 2, having reached up to 5 there, a brief period of geomagnetic storm. We can expect to see aurorae all over Twitter today. Congratulations on not being banned from Twitter. If you don't have an account, go set up an account right there. There's no better place to network with all this sort of astronomy, heliophysics, astrophysics, and cosmology stuff that we talk about on the regs. Next, the solar system forecast. Here's where stuff is now. There's where things will be in a week. We'll see a crescent waning as we move toward our next new moon. My favorite phase, because it causes me to sleep better at night. What can I say? Next, a star chart. We've drawn in the blue line here is the galactic plane. The yellow line is the ecliptic, the path the sun will take across the sky. If you're up before dawn, you may see Mars and Venus and Mercury and Saturn all rising ahead of the sun. It's a planetary pileup as the moon sets over Lehigh Valley. Our location, last but not least, we'll look at the coronagraphs. And we can expect to be looking more at coronagraphs because we are expecting earthly coronal mass ejections. So this coronal mass ejection you're seeing here in the LASCO C3, which is located at Lagrange point 1 right there in between Earth and Sun, is not earthly directed. It's looking like it's on the other side of the sun. This coronagraph over here is stereo A, located here at Lagrange point 5. It sees space weather ahead of Earth. And that ends our Fields and Features segment. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. From the Smash News Network, least busted name in news.